Alrighty guys, welcome back to Cobra Vids. If you've been watching the other parts of this project here, you'll know where I'm at on that. And now we're going to move to the water pump and the thermostat. And this is kind of a difficult spot to get to, but it's not that bad. I already started loosening up the water jug. There's a bolt here. Well, first off, there's a bolt that holds this baby on here. And then we just move that aside out there like that. There's a bolt here, there's a hose here, there's a bolt here, there's a hose down here. And then once that's all disconnected, oh, of course, the overflow hole right there. Of course, we've got, that's the overflow, sorry. We've got this out. We're going to have to test this out, make sure that this isn't leaking, clean it up a little bit, rinse it out, and before we bring it back in here. But anyway, we're going to set that aside here. And then the thermostat, I've already loosened it up. It goes right there in that slot right there. Pretty easy to get to. But when I brought this out, that's what it looked like, guys. That's what it looked like. And let me show you what it's supposed to look like. Okay, this is what the thermostat is supposed to look like, and that's what this came out to look like. The metal piece was in there. I did get that out. I think it's over on the bench somewhere. And that goes to show you that something wasn't right here. So we got a new one. Toss that one in the garbage. And now we got this one right here. We're not going to put this in just yet because we have to remove the water pump. So we're going to set this up here nice and safe. And then what we're going to do is we've already supported the engine a little bit. We're going to remove all of these bolts here to remove this, the motor mount. And then we're going to have to remove all these bolts, which will remove the motor mount bracket from the engine. And then we should be able to remove the belt and get to that water pump a lot easier. You see all this here? That's from boiling over. And that's a mess right there. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to remove the motor mount and then I'm going to come right back to you. All right, guys, here we go. We got the motor mount out, the two brackets and the actual mount. And then these last two bolts, the big bolt in the middle and the small one over here, the 13 millimeter over here, they slide all the way out and hit up against this. And then the bracket comes up like this. So you'll have to have the big bolt and that 13 millimeter one on the bottom halfway in the bracket as you put it back in. Don't start tightening up bolts without that in, or you're going to have to pull it back out. So now we need, I think it's a 3/8 drive socket or ratchet that I could put on that tensioner. Push it that way, loosen up this belt, and then we have to pull this pulley off in order to get to all the bolts for the water pump. Alright guys, this video is mainly for the owner of the car. But we see this plastic piece right here. And then we start to see signs of something dripping. And I don't know if it was dripping out of this bolt hole, which is part of the water pump. But I don't know if it's dripping down here and around and down and dripping off of this. So I'm going to have to take some consideration to see if I can pull this off and possibly replace the O-ring. I'm sure it's an O-ring or might even be a gasket. But I'll see if I can buy that part locally just to replace that seal, because it almost looks like it's leaking on the bottom side there. And this side is where he said that he saw a puddle of water. So we're going to go ahead and check on that. I'm going to get the water pump out and inspect it real quick and possibly get it back in before I pull that off. I'm going to make sure I can get an O-ring local before I go pulling that off and be stuck with it in my garage for another week. What we've done is we've managed to get the new water pump installed. We've got the small 10 millimeter bolts tightened down to 100, 105, somewhere around there. And now we're working on getting the belt routed so that we could put the idler pulley in there and get this thing fully installed. I got to verify that I've got the belt right. This is the first time I've done this belt on this engine, so I got to verify that I got it routed right. And then we can put that tensioner pulley on there and start getting things finalized. We've got this piece back on. We torqued them down to about 105 as well, just like the water pump. That felt about right. I couldn't find much information about torque specs for this engine for some reason. I definitely couldn't find the hose routing, but I don't know if this is going to help you. But let me see if I can get the light in there correctly. I hope this helps. But that's the way it's going to go. That's the only way to go. And now, keep in mind, guys, usually I clean engines up superbly to where they look like a brand new engine while I'm working on them. But this one's a rush job. The guy needs this car ASAP for work, so I'm skipping a lot of detail work that I normally do just to get this back in his hands as soon as possible. And plus, I'm taking some time to bring this video to you guys. So it's your fault! Just kidding. We love you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and hook up this hose. We're going to install the thermostat, the brand new thermostat right there. And then we'll be right back to explain the next step. The thermostat on, we got that hose hooked up. We've got this hose hooked up. And now we're going to install the motor mount again. Remember, the bracket that mounts to the engine goes first because it has to go down in that groove in order for the bolts to clear it. When you go to install it, make sure those bolts are in there or you'll have a hell of a time getting it in there. Whoops! After reinstalling the water jug and plugging up the bottom hose there and the top hose is up here, and reinstalling the container for the power steering fluid, make sure that you get that hose bolted to that's a bracket that holds that line in there. So with everything torqued down up front, the only thing I have left to do is put those hoses, that's the old water pump, put those hoses back on the bottom of the new water pump, and then I will be ready to put some water in it to test it for initial leaks. So we're going to put those hoses on there and then we'll come back to pouring some water in here. We're going to start putting some water in it now. Normally when you do a water pump, the first gallon of water you put into the engine, you start getting a leak. But what we're going to do is put purified water in there, and then we're going to fill it all the way up, burp it, fill it up. We're going to run it, heat it up. As soon as we know there's no leaks, then we'll drain that out and start putting some actual antifreeze in there with it. Alright, this will be, whoops, this will be 3/4 of a gallon. Okay, well that filled that up. I know the engine's not full, but that's full right now. So we'll go ahead and just let that drain down some, and then we'll top it off as we go. But then we're going to go back to this project, and we're going to finish up building the top half, put the upper intake on, and get things finished up. Thank God. Alright guys, so for the intake, I'm going to start pulling off these. I don't know where my dental pick is. I don't know where it went, but I'm going to slowly pick all these off, and then I'm going to install the new ones, and then we will install the upper intake and start getting things bolted down. Okay, so we got all the new gaskets in, and now we're going to lay in this foam piece that came off of here. Okay, just like so. And now we're going to get that upper intake. There wasn't a foamy piece for the back. I don't know if it's missing or if it never had it, but we don't have one. There's a, I know where that goes. There's this piece right here. This is the piece that goes back there. It's part of the intake. See that rubber piece? Voila. That'll be easier to get on there. Thing on there. Ugh. I'll give up. No, I won't. I'll get it. And then we'll get that. I think I'm going to lay that in there, and then we'll work the intake on top of that. See how that goes. We are, once I get this plugged in, we are officially all plugged in. We have everything installed except for the big dust cover, but we'll do that a little bit later. I got to check the oil, make sure there's enough oil in there to fire it up. We'll get it test fired, and we'll see if we can warm it up a little bit. I'll be back when it's running, and we'll talk about it at that time.